Yeah, good morning. That's Uncle Lou here. That's right. It is me, Uncle Lou, live on LouTube for you. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you're new to the channel. That would be a big help. Spring games. I feel like I make a version of this video every single year, and it's time to do it again. Now, a couple of spring games have already been played. Missouri, for no reason at all, played their spring game on March 16th. That's the whole, if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, does it really make a noise? Did they really play the spring game? I don't know. Yeah, they did on March 16th, though. The majority of teams have their spring games coming up over the next couple of weeks. Now, spring practice has been going on for several weeks, a month, even in some places now. And if you're like me, you tend to keep up with what's going on with your own team's spring practice, but not generally so much the rest of college football, unless maybe there's some sort of like big quarterback battle going on at a major school or something like that. You may keep an eye on it. But just my experience, generally speaking, most people tend to keep an eye on their own team's spring practices. And then when the spring games come around, the interest sort of grows outside of that for a lot of people. Maybe there's a handful of other teams you're curious to watch their spring game. But again, I make a version of this video every year. We're going to do it again. We're going to start with what I think are the positives of spring games, and then we're going to move on to some of the negative things. Again, most of this is nothing new if you've been around this channel for a while. But first of all, what I'll say about spring games is if you've never been to your team's spring game, you need to go. They're usually really, really cheap or free, depending on who your team happens to be. Tickets can be prohibitively expensive for a lot of people to go to a game in the fall, particularly to go to a big game in the fall, unless you've got family connections or friendly connections or season tickets or something like that where you get tickets at a really good rate. If you're having to buy tickets secondhand off of StubHub, Ticketmaster, whatever the case, tickets can be prohibitively expensive for a lot of people. To take a family affordable football game down here, you're talking probably $1,000. And that's for a low-end game. That's tickets, gas to get there, transportation, food while you're there, buying a souvenir or two, all that kind of thing. It adds up. The spring game, that's not the case. You can go to a spring game for really, really cheap. Now, I'm not trying to suggest that a spring game is anything close to what you see in the fall in terms of a real competitive football game. It's not. But if you're a diehard fan of your team, you will have an amazing time at the spring game. You'll get to see the incoming freshmen who have enrolled early play for the first time with your team's helmet on. You get to see an early look if you've got new head coaches, new coordinators, new starters, whatever the case, new quarterback. You'll get early looks at how they look. Again, it's not a mirror image of what you'll see in the fall. It's not even close. In fact, calling it a spring game is almost a disservice. It's really not a game. In fact, a lot of places don't play games at all. They start on the 20. They don't do kickoffs. They run different drills instead of playing it, whatever. The point is not the game itself that takes place for a couple hours on Saturday afternoon. It's everything that goes on around it. At Georgia, it's a carnival atmosphere, basically. They had all kinds of vendors and everything else up there. You can take your entire family. If you've got young kids, right? Great opportunity to get your kids interested in football early on. Again, you can go for next to nothing. The tickets for these things are dirt cheap. A lot of ex-players show up at these spring games, and if autographs is something you're into, I remember when my son was little, we had a Georgia helmet, and we took this Georgia helmet to every spring game for years, and every single year he'd get 2 or 3 autographs added to that helmet, and I don't even know how many he ended up with on there, but he still got that helmet in his room. I know he's got all the Bailey brothers signed it. Anyway, it's a bunch of anyway, the point is it's family friendly. You don't have sort of the anxiety or the sort of amped up attitudes that you have in the fall with a regular game. There's really nothing on the line outside of crossing your fingers that obviously no one gets hurt. But it's just a totally different experience. And I every year I make this video encouraging people to go to the spring game, especially if you've never been. Do I go to every spring game? No, I don't go to every spring game. In fact, I went to a lot more when my kids were younger than I do now. My kids absolutely loved the spring game. My daughter would go get her picture taken with the cheerleaders. You can get your picture taken with UGA. You can get your picture taken with former and current players. There's just so much that goes on in and around a spring game that you're never going to have the opportunity to do or experience at a real game in the fall. So whether you've been to a ton of games in the fall but never been to a spring game, or you're unable to go to games in the fall for whatever reason, consider going to your team's spring game. You won't regret it. It's a great time. Now, let's get to the negative here. Why can't I watch these games on TV? This is really pissing me off. Now, I have complained about this year after year after year. If you tune into ESPN over the next several Saturdays, you're going to see everything from pickleball to cornhole to the World Tag Championships. I'm not talking about wrestling like tag team. I'm talking about like grown people playing the game of tag. You will see some of the worst TV programming mankind has to offer on ESPN's family of networks on Saturdays over the next several weeks. It's absolutely unwatchable. Why are there not 50 spring games televised over ESPN's family of networks over the next month? These spring games, and again, we're going to go through the schedule. You see the start of it on the screen here. I'm going to go through the schedule, but these spring games are spread out over Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays over the next month. I still don't. I just don't get it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's like maybe an SEC doesn't want them to. I don't know what the deal is, but it's absolutely ridiculous. And Fox Sports has knocked this thing out of the park, as you'll see in a minute here. Football is basically, whether we like it or not, and I don't, come down to an SEC versus Big Ten sort of competition for eyeballs. That's really what college football is going to come down to over the next 20 years. Can the Big Ten get more people watching it than watch the SEC, or vice versa? That's all it's going to be. And you're going to see here, Fox Sports is kicking the shit out of ESPN when it comes to spring games, in my opinion, okay? Let's go through some of this here. Let's say you are a diehard Missouri fan, or for whatever reason, you just wanted to watch the Missouri game. Well, you can't do it unless you've got a subscription to ESPN+. Now, what in the world was on ESPN Saturday, March 16th that they couldn't cut out a 3-hour block to televise this Missouri game, either on ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, ESPN News, SEC Network, whatever, ABC? What? I don't understand it. And that's Missouri, okay? Not to knock on Missouri, but they're nowhere near one of the bigger brands of the SEC, and I still think this game should have been available for people to watch who wanted to watch it. Let's go on to this coming Saturday, not today, but a week from today, April 6th. Auburn, Clemson, NC State. NC State and Clemson are two of the top 4 teams in the ACC heading into next season. ESPN owns the rights to both of those teams, owns the TV rights for both of those teams. Clemson is coming on ESPN Plus, streaming. Again, you've got to have a subscription service to ESPN Plus to watch the fucking Clemson spring game. Georgia plays Clemson week 1. I might be a little interested in what Clemson looks like, don't you think? But unless I subscribe to ESPN Plus, which for the record, I do, because I'm just a sick individual, and I have it for football season when weird, like one game a year for every team and every league comes on this, whatever. So I have it. So I can watch it if I want, but the average idiot can't. But then they put the NC State game on the ACC network, which most people do have. My mind is blown. Again, shout out for putting NC State on TV, but how is this decision made? Just ask yourself, if you're a college football fan and you're not an NC State fan, you're a fan of any other team, who do you want to watch between Clemson and NC State? The answer is Clemson. The overwhelming majority of college football fans would prefer to watch a Clemson spring game versus an NC State. Now, again, I'm not saying that to knock NC State. They should both be on TV. Auburn should be on TV. Year 2, Hugh Freeze brought in a lot through the transfer portal, a good recruiting class, whatever. What's the offense going to look like this year after it didn't even exist last year? Who's playing quarterback? There's just so many questions there. And unless you subscribe to ESPN Plus, you're not going to watch it. Minnesota, 5:30 p.m., not on TV. It's Minnesota. Central Florida, not on TV. Kansas, not on TV. Again, these are low-level teams that not a lot of people care about. Houston, here we go. Back to the ESPN owned teams here. Saturday, April 13th, two weeks from today. Houston, streaming only on ESPN Plus. But Boston College, you can watch on the ACC network. Not Clemson. Not Clemson. You want to watch Clemson, you got to subscribe to ESPN streaming service, not on TV. But Boston College, feel free to tune in at noon and watch this sinking fucking ship here. It makes no sense. But look what Fox Sports did. Ohio State. Not on FS1, not on FS2, not on CBS Sports Network that you can't find, not on the CW. Nope. On broadcast television. You can watch this fucking game with a coat hanger, with a set of rabbit ears, They're doing it right. They're doing it right. Ohio State is either the biggest or second biggest brand in the Big Ten. I'm not getting into that debate. Michigan and Ohio State fans can have that debate on their own. Not talking about who's the better team. Clearly, Michigan's been the better team each of the last 3 years. We'll see what happens this year with that. But as far as the brands go, they're either the biggest or second biggest brand in the Big Ten. And I just leave it at that. Y'all can argue that in the comments. And so what does Fox do? Fox goes, well, we just signed a $100 billion TV deal with the Big Ten. Let's put one of their biggest brands on at noon in April for people that are starved to death for college football. You're out of your mind if you don't think I'm tuning in and watching this. Of course I'm tuning in and watching this. They're making it as easy as possible for me to tune in and watch this. They're putting it on Fox at a great time slot, 12 p.m. on a Saturday. Unless I'm a golf fan, the Masters is that weekend. Unless I'm a golf fan, this is what I'm watching. And I'm not a golf fan, so I will be watching Fox noon Ohio State spring game. Purdue streaming. Arkansas, so here we go back to the SEC teams. Arkansas, streaming only. Georgia. All right, again, I'm not going to get into an argument about how big brands are. Georgia's one of the top 2, 3, 4 brands in the SEC, right? You got Bama, Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, Tennessee, whoever you want to not get. That's not the point of this video. We can make a separate video about ranking the brand or whatever. But Georgia's won two of the last 3 national titles. It makes absolutely no sense that this game is streaming only. What is wrong? What is going on at ESPN? Who is making these? Again, if I tune into ESPN on Saturday, April 13th, or ESPN2 or ESPN News or SEC Network, what am I going to see? Some regular season SEC baseball game that 3 people on the face of the fucking planet care about? Cornhole, pickleball, what? I mean, this is mind-blowingly stupid on ESPN's part. Georgia Tech, again, not an ACC-owned school in terms of television rights, streaming only. Florida, streaming only. Kentucky, streaming only. Tennessee, streaming only. So it's not even that there's too many games and so they have to stick some of them on streaming. Every single one of them is streaming only. And again, this isn't me complaining out of selfishness. I've got access to ESPN Plus, okay? I can watch these games if I want to. But everyone should be able to watch these games if they want to. This is ridiculous. ESPN is dropping the ball huge. Utah, not on TV. Pac-12, now Big 12. LSU, new quarterback. The defense was terrible last year. How big of a step forward are they going to take? Jaden Daniels gone. How's Nussmeier going to fit in there? Lost one of the best receivers in college football. Who do they replace? A lot of interest in LSU. Can't watch the spring game. It's streaming only on ESPN Plus. But Penn State, 2 p.m. Now, here the Big Ten's dropping the ball here. Penn State should be on the Big Ten Network, FS1, FS2. I get it that maybe they can't put it on Fox like they did Ohio State because of the timing here. The Ohio State game comes on at noon. It probably won't be over by 2, so maybe, okay, we can't put Penn State on Fox. But Fox owns several other channels, the FS1, FS2, whatever. This Penn State game should be on TV somewhere. So I think the Big Ten is doing better than the SEC in terms of showing us these spring games, but they got a long way to go too. I don't know who's making these decisions, these executives. Do they not understand how starved college football fans are for football this time of year? I don't understand it. Maybe, I don't know if I'm missing something with the broadcast rights of these spring games. I'm assuming that if ESPN owns the broadcast rights to Georgia, they own the broadcast rights to their spring game. I'm assuming if Fox owns the broadcast rights for Penn State, they own the broadcast rights for Penn State spring game. Am I missing something here? What in the absolute fuck is going to be on FS2 at 2 p.m. Saturday, April 13th that's so important they can't bump it and show me the Penn State spring game? I'll go to my grave not understanding. But ESPN in its infinite wisdom, you can't watch the Georgia spring game. You can't watch Florida, Kentucky, or Tennessee. You can't watch the Clemson spring game, but you can fucking watch Pitt on the ACC network at 2. No one is watching that. I mean, Tony Dorsett wouldn't watch that dumb shit. No one's watching that. But the rest of the games that people do want to watch, nope, streaming only. South Florida, nobody cares. Here's Virginia Tech is streaming only. Alabama is on TV. This makes sense, right? This makes perfect sense. They're one of the biggest brands, not just in the SEC, but in all of college football. Saban's retirement, the hiring of Kalen DeBoer, the transfer portal mess that went on there. There's a ton of interest in Alabama football for obvious reasons. So this makes perfect sense. If they're going to only show one spring game, this is probably the one to show. But patting them on the head because they're showing us the Alabama game at 4 o'clock, but not showing us anything else, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. There should be 4 spring games on that day on ESPN. Noon, 3:30, 7:30, 10, whatever. So, congratulations for showing the Bama game. Again, that's good. But what about the rest of them? Miami could potentially be about to have their best year they've had in a long, long time. I'm talking 20-something years. I don't think they're winning the national title, but they're positioned, if things work out well, to have one of, if not the best seasons they've had in 20 years. Spring game streaming only. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, 11-win season last year, predicted by a lot of people to make the playoffs in 2025. Ole Miss in the playoffs, in 2024. Mind-blowing. Can't watch the spring game, though. Streaming only. A bunch of nothing teams. Thursday, April 18th. The next Saturday. Georgia Southern streaming plus. Now, this is the type of spring game that belongs on streaming. A Georgia Southern game. Group of 5 team. Not a big university. Never, not great. They used to be great in the whole 1AA era. Won a bunch of national title. But, now they're supposedly a big boy. They're a group of 5, whatever. But this is the type of spring game that belongs on Streaming Plus, okay? And look, I got nothing against Georgia Southern. My dad went to Georgia Southern. I love Georgia Southern. But that's the type of spring game you say, okay, I can understand why that's streaming only, right? But look at Fox, Michigan, 12 p.m. Not on the same day, right? Like the SEC is doing it. Georgia and Bama playing spring games at the same time, and Ole Miss and Tennessee playing spring games at the same, or whatever it is. Nope. The Big Ten and Fox got together. They took their 2 biggest brands. They put their spring games on 2 different Saturdays, and they're televising them both. Not on streaming. Not on some ancillary channel like FS1 or FS2. Not on the Big Ten Network. On broadcast television. Saturday, April 20th, Michigan spring game, 12 p.m. on Fox. The Saturday before that, Ohio State, 12 p.m. Fox. Fox is winning. Fox is winning. And again, and I've said this a million times, I don't care what channel a game, I don't get into the this channel versus that channel debate. Now, a lot of people love to bash ESPN for different reasons, but in terms of like what channel a game is on, I don't care. I just want to be able to watch the game. I don't care what it's on, but I can't ignore the fact that there is a battle going on right now within college football, and it's primarily between ESPN, ABC, Disney versus Fox. And in the case of spring games, Fox is winning. Fox is winning. And again, I don't care about that personally because I watch just as much Big Ten as I do SEC. I watch just as much Pac-12 as I do ACC. I watch so much college football, it's really a problem. So it doesn't matter to me what channel a game comes on as long as it comes on some channel. But Fox is winning this spring game battle here. They are making good decisions, and ESPN is making piss poor, pitiful, and sad decisions. Baylor, streaming only. Big 12, that's an SEC family of networks. Mississippi State, owned by ESPN, streaming only. Notre Dame, Peacock. Now, we can laugh and point at Peacock channel. At least the Peacock channel is a fucking channel. ESPN Plus, SEC Network Plus, these aren't channels. These are streaming services. Illinois. Not very many people care about Illinois, but a game's on the Big Ten Network. You can watch it on television if you choose to. But now, these are the 2 dumbest ones by far. These might be 2 of the dumbest decisions ESPN has made. Oklahoma and Texas making their way to the SEC. You don't think there are millions and millions of SEC fans who probably have not watched a lot of Texas and Oklahoma over the last several years who might be interested in them now. Oklahoma, Saturday, April 20th at 2 o'clock, streaming only on ESPN+. This is one of the dumbest decisions in the history of TV programming. Only exceeded in its idiocy by the decision to put Texas on the same day, the same time, on the Longhorn Network. I have been bashing the Longhorn Network for a decade. It's a waste of money. No one watches it. Texas fans don't watch it. You tune into the Longhorn Network, it's nothing but reruns of Texas college softball games from 1994. You can count on one hand the number of people right now that could even tell you how or where to watch the Longhorn Network. It's a dead network. It's a dead channel. It was dead on arrival. The fact that these two teams, given what's going on in the world of college football, the fact that these two teams not only are not being broadcast on television for people to watch their spring games, but the games where they are being shown, streaming services in both cases, no one's got the Longhorn Network. But they come on the same day and the same time. You can't watch them both. Go back to what Fox did. They took Ohio State and Michigan and they broke them up, spread them apart, a week apart, both on broadcast television. Texas and Oklahoma, ESPN owns the rights to those games, streaming only on the same day at the same time. Mind-bogglingly stupid. Texas A&M, streaming only. Wake Forest. Again, can somebody explain to me why North Carolina's... Okay. North Carolina's not going to be great this year. They lost Drake May. But so the North Carolina game's not on TV. They are a huge brand. You can't ignore it. Okay? They were disappointing. They should have done better when they had Drake May. They didn't. That's not the point. They're a huge brand. They're not on at all. But Wake Forest is on the ACC network at 2. This is mind-blowingly stupid. I know this video was dragging on, and I've been just beating the dead horse here. But again, the ESPN does this every year. This is now Florida State's on the ACC network. So again, pat on the head, right? Thank you for putting Florida State on TV so people can watch it. But is it on ABC? Nope. Is it on ESPN? No. What do you think is going to be on ESPN Saturday, April 20th at 4 p.m. that more people would watch than would watch the Florida State spring game? Whatever. The answer is nothing. There is nothing they could put on at 4 o'clock that day that would draw more eyeballs than the Florida State spring game. What are they doing? They're going to be showing some dumbass women's college softball regular season game or some dumbass men's college baseball regular season game that nobody cares about. Nobody. Put the baseball game on ACC network and put Florida State on ESPN. I don't understand any of this. Duke. I can watch Duke's spring game on the ACC network, but I can't watch Clemson or Georgia or Texas or Ole Miss or Tennessee. This is South Carolina, can't watch it, streaming only. Syracuse, streaming only. I mean, I'm not going to go through the rest. It's all the same. It's all the same. Where is I did want to point this out because I just thought this was funny, and I don't know the legal intricacies of why this is. But so Southern Cal comes on Saturday, April 20th, 3 o'clock, Pac-12 network. Now, I get it that Southern Cal is still technically into Pac-12, right? But I don't know. Who's watching the Pac-12 network anymore, right? Probably less people than watching the Longhorn Network. For whatever reason, I don't know why Fox couldn't get this one away from the Pac-12 network, but they probably should have. But anyway, I don't know. This makes me mad every year with the spring games in the stream. Am I overreacting? Am I the only one? I've been accused of overreacting before. Anyway, I do appreciate you watching. Please hit the thumbs up if you made it this far. You're a real trooper. Please hit the thumbs up. It helps a lot. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Have a good morning.